That would usually be where I'd put something I made. However, I didn't make anything. So that was I was like, before we even started, guys, I was like telling them, I've never started a video without like something at the beginning. So it felt weird. So the generic intro it is for now. But today we have one topic and one topic only. And that is Batwoman season 3. We have a bunch of notes. It's been a few weeks now since the season ended. I wanted to do it a couple weeks ago, but things just kept happening. And so we're finally here to talk about it. And hopefully you guys in the chat are excited to voice your opinion about the show. Feel free to say whether you love it, whether you hate it, however you feel. I'm going to put this at the bottom, although super chats are always appreciated. If you have a super chat that is not related to Batwoman, we will answer it, but it will be at the end of the discussion. So just keep that in mind. If you would like something about Batwoman discussed and answered 100%, or if you want to just give your opinion, you can super chat and we'll put it up on the screen and talk about it. So I titled this, I thought it was kind of edgy because, you know, putting is Batwoman the best DC TV show. And the reason why I say that is I know a lot of people are going to find this hard to believe, but there is a bunch of people that love Batwoman. They love this show and they love it more than all the other shows. And for me, I would say that this season, out of all of the seasons of Batwoman, was probably my favorite season. I think this season was more successful than the other seasons. Season 1 had a lot of issues. This is not a season 1 overview, but as much as I loved where it ended up, it had a rough go in season 1. And season 2 felt like it was fixing the mistakes from season 1 and also trying to introduce like a new character, which was kind of an issue. But season 3, and I have this in the notes here, this is the first season where they had the opportunity to just tell Ryan Wilder's story and really dive into her background and sort of make the rest of the team feel like they were part of the story that Ryan was telling. Because last season, again, Kate Kane kind of, even though she wasn't there, she was sort of the second main character all season long in season 2. So as we jump into that, I want to say thank you to Lance, Buddy, and Canada Graphs for being here with me today for the season overview. All right, so that's kind of my takeaway on Batwoman season 3. Would one of you guys want to chime in and just give your initial thoughts of what you were expecting with season 3 and kind of, you know, compared to what we actually got? Canada Graphs, Buddy, I know Lance is eating.
Yeah, sure. I agree with you. I think this is the best season of the 3. And I agree with you that, like, I think this is a season where Ryan kind of was the lead finally. You know, season 2, she was a co-lead with the story about Kate Kane and Alice. She had many co-leads last season. I'll also agree, like, there are a lot of fans that love this show for reasons that they're very passionate about certain things about the show. Fair enough. It is my favorite show out of the Arrowverse right now.
What?
I won't say that it's the best show.
I kind of get that.
Okay.
I kind of agree.
Superman and Lois is clearly a superior show quality-wise.
But you prefer Batwoman. But you would rather watch Batwoman.
I find the characters more interesting, and I find the story more interesting.
All right. Well, look, people are nodding their heads here. Does anybody else want to chime in after that? Any thoughts on that?
I will jump in after that. I have to agree 100%. I have to say, each week watching Batwoman this season, it kept me intrigued each week. I wanted to know what's going to happen next. What's going to happen next? Oh my God, did that really just happen? Like the whole, when we get into it, we going to get into it. But I have to say, by far, especially, season 3 of Batwoman is literally season 1.0.
Yes.
Okay.
This is where Ryan's really, you know, takes front and center. The characters were, in my opinion, well written. The stories, they may have been iffy here and there, you know, as all TV shows are, but they kept you involved. They kept you wanting more.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, we didn't have any terrible filler. We didn't have any interludes.
That's true. That is true.
We didn't have any annoying catchphrases that kept.
That's also true.
And the villains were actually good.
I'm not disagreeing with anything you're saying right now.
How do they do 2.0s better than a show that literally established we're going to be bringing in 2.0s? Mm-hmm. Like, we didn't know this is what we were getting. Right. With Flash in the past few seasons, we knew we were getting 2.0s. but they weren't that interesting. They were gag characters. This, they made them serious. Batwoman always gonna take it for me. That's why
there we
gotta
go.
come back. Gotta come back.
All right. Buddy, thoughts on this? You chime in?
I really liked season 3 a lot. I really did. You know, binging back through my reviews to kind of catch up for this. Every single review I did, I always talked about Javicia killing it every week. I loved it. I don't care if it's just natural performance every week, but like I just felt like this was her season. I'm like, this is amazing. I love this. I can't believe, because post Batwoman season 1 days, I was like, what are we doing without a main character? What I was so scared for the show, because even in season 1, I was like, this show has a lot of potential. Like I see it. And so, now we're 3 seasons into the show and I'm like, no, this was great. I love this. And like, I can't help but just every week I look at the shows I'm most excited for, and I'm always excited for Batwoman the most by myself. I've been showing my friends Superman and Lois to kind of get them into the Arrowverse, and so I'm excited to watch that with them because they're not into this, right? Mm-hmm. But this is the show for me. I love it. I love the cast, and I gotta have a season 4, man. I hope we talk about that a little bit. I need it.
We're gonna talk about that's the very last thing we'll talk about. I see a lot of positive energy for Batwoman, and this is something you don't normally get on YouTube. So I thought it would be interesting to gather some folks together who, can be critical, but also don't have to just go wild and tear something down. Because here's the deal. And before I even move into my thoughts and we start getting into the details of this season, one of the things I love about doing my YouTube channel, and I don't know how everybody else feels about it, is that I've always been able to talk about the stuff I love, but understand that love is not perfection. You're going to have things that are wrong, and that's in real life. You love people even though there are things that you don't like about them, and that's just the way it is. And so for me, when people say, oh, well, if you don't like X reason on the show, you must hate the show. And that's never the case for me. There are very few shows that I hate. Even Legends of Tomorrow, which I have tons of issues with, I do not hate the show. I just don't really want to watch it week to week, and that's the way it is. I've watched Legends after the season finishes, and I'll watch it on my own personal time, or like with the Matt Lesher Reverse Flash episodes, I'll watch those if something, really big is going to happen. I'll turn it on and watch it. And shows like Naomi that I don't like, but I don't hate Naomi, but I don't watch it. So for me, there's stuff you love that you can be critical about. So I want people to realize that this criticism is not coming from a place of hate here. It is a place of love, because we all enjoy Batwoman. So if we say anything critical, that's the way it is. All right. So the first thing I want to talk about is the premise of this season, which I thought was rather interesting. And Lance, you sort of touched on this, was we were getting new updated versions of classic Batman characters for Batwoman. And predominantly this season, we got the 2 major ones were Poison Ivy and obviously a Joker character. And so those were kind of our 2 main characters. But then we also had week-to-week villains. We had Professor Pig, just a lot of other, the Mad Hatter. We had these other characters that sort of also played a role. I don't think, and I say this completely without any hyperbole, I don't think any of the week-to-week villains felt like a throwaway villain. They all felt like they had a real story. Even, the Professor Pig character, which I didn't care for that episode, his story made sense. And it was like, okay, this is a character that is playing into that. Is there any villain this season? And it could be Poison Ivy, it can be Mary Ivy, it could be, Marcus. Was there any villainous character this season that you thought was done particularly well on the show? Like if you had to pick one that you enjoyed the most?
Marcus.
Okay. So you like Marcus the most?
I will go on record and say one of the weak spots for the season was Ivy for me.
Okay.
And I think Marcus was the exact
the Ivy
opposite.
storyline or Ivy the character?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, fair enough. Buddy, Lance?
I think I have to agree on that. I think Marcus, just in the first 5 episodes, right, they set up the whole business storyline, like the corporate takeover of Wayne, which I hated. And then as soon as that episode with Professor Pig and we learn about Marcus, it's like, oh, thank God, we're getting rid of the business trope of Wayne CEO, all that garbage, because it's it's stuff we've seen before in the Arrowverse, and we're switching it and fully going with this Joker storyline instead. I thought that was a great twist. I loved that twist. Just
Mhm.
changing up the season as a whole. I think Marcus was really well done. From season 2's end, I had been just talking every single week about Poison Ivy. When is she coming? Because I was very excited. But I have to agree, like it was kind of disappointing in retrospect because I was so excited for that character to be on the show, and I thought the performance
You're talking
was
about
great.
Poison Ivy, correct? Poison
Yeah,
Ivy?
yeah. Sorry, switching over to Poison Ivy. And it's like, I was so disappointed by that. That was the character I was most excited for. And I feel like we didn't really get what I wanted, I guess.
It's funny during the after party, and I think Lance was there for some of these, and I'm pretty sure Cantergrass was. We actually thought Poison Ivy was going to be like the main villain
Yeah.
for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
So, what about you, Lance?
I'd have to say Marcus. When the episode came and Jada was actually telling Ryan like the whole backstory, I was literally on the edge of my seat because it just kept inching closer and closer to what the actual reveal was gonna be. And when the camera panned to him in that apartment or wherever he was at, and he just smeared the blood across his face, I'm like, okay, they're really doing this. They're really pushing that envelope. It's going to piss a lot of people off, but they're doing it. Like we're getting a black Joker. Like they're really doing this, and that blew my mind because I'm like, you already know, people hate on Batwoman to hate on Batwoman.
Yes.
The showrunner, the creative team behind it, everybody said, forget what these people are talking about. We have a fan base. We're going to do what we want.
Yeah.
We're going to do something that's going to surprise people. And that brought even more people in. The Poison Ivy, that was cool. But, I mean, I heard that DC wouldn't even really let them use her for a long time, which is why they cast an actress who was particularly already busy. Because, I mean, she was over on Grey's Anatomy, too.
Right.
So,
it's funny. Let's, my notes are kind of out of order, but I want to talk about Marcus. Let's just go ahead and dive into that Marcus storyline and Poison Ivy in general. So I loved Mary's storyline this season because Mary had an opportunity to do something that actually made her a more interesting character. There was nothing inherently wrong with Mary in seasons 1 and 2. I just felt like Mary was a very one-dimensional character in what she was asked to do on the show. This season, they gave her something that actually added to the ability of her to be another type of character, and that was the Poison Ivy vessel, the twist of this Poison Ivy storyline. I didn't dislike the classic Poison Ivy, and I feel like they went that direction because they wanted to give like the old school Batman fans something in the season that felt familiar to them with this version of Poison Ivy. But I personally, if you're talking about like from a story standpoint, I liked the Mary Poison Ivy storyline. I thought that was more interesting than the Montoya Poison Ivy storyline that we got.
Yeah.
And I kind of felt bad that Mary had to give it up. I didn't like that she turned into like this evil character, but I did like that it gave her something to do. It gave her a connection with Alice, which had been kind of stale for a season. I feel like it also made Alice a more interesting character by giving her that buddy cop type thing with her and Mary for a little bit. And I thought that was quite good. But I have to agree. I think the Poison Ivy storyline felt like it started and then it ended immediately. There wasn't a lot there. It was like we got the ending of one episode where she was introduced as a villain, and then the next episode she was on a plane to go away with Montoya. It felt very quick for something that was building up so much. We were with Mary Poison Ivy for what, 4 episodes, something like that. It took a while for us to get Poison Ivy, and then we get her and she's gone immediately. But I think that was for the benefit of the show because Marcus ended up being a far more interesting character than Poison Ivy was, just in general. And I believe his name is Nick, the actor that plays he has been so excited and passionate about playing this character. On social media, you can see how happy he is to bring his own version of the Joker. And actually, the great thing about it is we don't have a referential version of this Joker. This is 100% whatever they want it to be. So all of that falls on the creative side of Batwoman. And I love the updated like clothing that looks like the Joker, the updated hair that looks like the Joker. This is why I'm almost tired. Okay, so we've talked about this before. Like the Batman world is very saturated. It's all over the place. And I've been very tired of like seeing mildly recycled versions of characters. The one thing I love about Batwoman, even when they don't do it right, is they're taking risk right now. Season 3 had a lot of risky choices for characters. And so I think Marcus, as a new version of a Joker prototype where he's going to be, I'm pretty sure if we get a season 4, he's going to be a full-on Joker. And so I like that they're going down that route with him. And I really appreciated his performance. So for me, I have to agree with all of you. I think that Marcus was the most interesting villain of the season. And outside of Alice from season 1, probably the most interesting villain the show has ever had. If I had to go out on a limb and say that, would you agree or disagree with that? Do you think Marcus is the most interesting, like, antagonist character that we've had on Batwoman since season 1?
Yep.
Yes. I don't even know if it's a competition.
It's really not.
Yeah. So, all right. So let's move on to talk about Ryan's story, because that's a good segue there. So Ryan had the opportunity to be introduced to her biological mother and her brother this season. And this storyline I had issues with the way it happened, but not the results of it. Like, I like the idea of this, like, mysterious family being introduced. I hated how quickly Wayne Enterprises got turned over to, taken away from Ryan. I thought that was a bit much. I also thought there was a lot of convenient plot points that led up to what happened with that storyline. But I loved the on-screen charisma between Marcus and Ryan and her mother. It all worked. They all felt like a family. So all of that worked for me. What did you think about the introduction of Ryan's mother? Did you like her in the show? Did you not like her? I don't think she got as much as I expected from her, but she was present when she was there, and obviously great acting. So thoughts on that storyline?
To be the way she was introduced, yes, I agree with you. It did kind of like why are you being so standoffish? It's like the way they went about introducing it was weird, but in the end it paid off because they basically they explained it. It was just convoluted as ever.
Yeah.
But I mean, like you said, great acting. The character is a nice addition. It just felt like they were trying to follow that archetype of, oh, well, we had Kate's sister and dad, so we're going to have Ryan's mother and brother.
You see this comment?
Black man.
I have no response to that whatsoever. None. We're just going to move on from that one. What about you, buddy? Did you like the storyline with the takeover of Wayne and how that all worked out, or no?
No, I hated it. I'm going to be totally honest. It was like the weakest part of the first half of the season for me. Like, I really didn't like it. So I didn't like the introduction of like the quirky brother, the standoffish mother. I'm like, okay, why are we choosing the most boring thing to do with a new character like Ryan? Why are we doing this? And then once again, I think it was episode 5 where that twist really kicked in. And then I just loved it. So everything after episode 5 was great. I don't know. This may be just like the most critical thing for me of the season, but it did feel a little disjointed with that, because it felt like such a hard twist. Like, it was like we were going one way and we just did a U-turn out of nowhere. I think it was for the better. I think it was definitely for the better, made the season way stronger. So I think definitely towards the end, I really liked the performances. There was a lot more chemistry. I really enjoyed all of that. Once we stepped out of the Wayne corporate stuff, I couldn't stand that.
Yeah. So in terms of like the characterizations of her mother, I particularly like the episode where they were both captured together and they had a chance to really talk about like the history and why Ryan was given up and why she chose to move on and things like that. That was probably, out of all of the episodes, my favorite episode with her mother, and my favorite interaction of that family was in that episode. I really enjoyed that. What about you, Candida Graphs? Any particular thoughts on that storyline? Did it move too quickly? Were you okay with it? How did you feel?
At the beginning, I think most people have kind of said a similar thing. Like, it felt weird at the beginning. I mean, I always assume eventually we'd hear about her birth mom, who, no one, I think, was thinking, oh yeah, she's going to be a billionaire CEO.
Right.
I think the interesting thing about this, though, is her introduction wasn't so much about introducing Ryan's mom to the world as it was a gateway to get us to the character of Marcus.
Yes, I agree, 100%.
And we didn't know it yet.
Yeah.
We just see this influencer brother she has. We're like, oh yeah, okay, so she's got a rich son. That's your typical rich son guy. We didn't know where they were going yet. And I've had this problem. I've had this problem now 3 seasons in a row with this show, and I need to learn it. And that is to just have a little faith in the writers that they're going to get somewhere.
Yeah, they take their time. Batwoman does take their time on this stuff.
I've done this now every season where I'm kind of like, I'm not getting this. There's a thing that just isn't connecting. And then about 3 episodes later, it hits me. I'm like, oh, that's where they were going. They just have taken their time getting there.
Or
we're
like
so
the Kate Kane storyline.
We're so used to these stories on the other shows that they wrap things up in 2 episodes.
Yeah.
That we just expect everything to just be shoveled at us like a buffet. Yeah. And Batwoman's gone the other way. They're kind of like, you're going to wait. And I need to learn. I need to learn to just trust that they're going to get there.
When you said that, it made me think of the Kate Kane storyline from last season that took like 17 episodes to finally get to the point or whatever. So I do have my only criticism of that storyline, and then we'll move on, and you guys can obviously chime in if you want, is it reminds me very much of the good sibling turned evil sibling that Ryan had to deal with Alice and, with Beth and Alice, where Marcus is now going to be a Joker character and that's her brother. And I'm like, oh gosh, are we doing this again? I only hope that she doesn't, like, if we get a season 4, which I hope we do, that we don't end up where she doesn't want to do anything to Marcus because that's her brother, like Kate was with Alice being her sister.
But I mean, they said he is cured though, so.
Yeah, I feel like they might go further with it. I think there's going to be a twist because of where Alice's storyline ended in the season. So I don't think, because if we end up, I will be really disappointed if we end up with Alice as the villain again in season 4 because of what happens to her at the end of the season. I will be so annoyed. By the way, let's move into Alice. That's a good way to move into that. So Alice has been around since season 1. She was the main villain character from season 1. In season 2, she was on her own journey to find her sister, which gave her like a side-by-side story with Ryan, which I complained about quite a bit in season 2. I thought it was just too much. In this season, they tried to give her a redemption story arc, and we got this great storyline with her and Mary, which, by the way, I think that was the best part of that Poison Ivy storyline, was the Alice and Mary stuff. I thought that was really good. And Alice wasn't so annoying this season. She had some moments where she annoyed me, but she wasn't perpetually annoying like she was in season 2, where every time she was on screen, I was like, oh, God. It wasn't like that. So I enjoyed that about Alice. But then at the end of the season, we're literally back to where we started, where Alice did all this character growth, all this building for all of season 3, and then she's just back locked up again, and she's seeing visions, and I'm so disappointed in that. To me, that was the biggest waste of time from season 3. Depending on what they're going to do with Alice in season 4. I enjoyed Alice for 95% of the season until the very end. Any thoughts on Alice? Anybody want to chime in on that?
I don't remember the episode. I can't remember if it was the penultimate or the one. I can't remember, but it was the one where Alice grabbed the buzzer from Sophie, and she was like having her moment, right, where she could get cured. And then when they just like tackled her to the ground, and she's just lying on the ground crying and going through her, I assume, another psychotic break, because everything she's been through, and then just throwing her in Arkham. I don't think I've ever been more mad at Batwoman for that. Because I'm like, why? Why is the Bat team, like, the entire season, dealing with stuff with, Mary? They're very compassionate and understanding of a lot of stuff. But then with Alice, I'm just like, what? What was that? Why did we get there? That decision just really threw me off. I didn't like it. And like, I love Alice in the show, but I have to admit, after that episode, I was just kind of like, I don't know. I'm kind of done. I'm kind of done with caring about that. I guess.
What about you, Lance? Candidagraphs? Anything to add to Alice?
I
you go first.
I liked Alice. I mean, her back and forth all together this season was a bit tiring.
Mm-hmm.
But in the end, she did end up helping Ryan. So I was like, okay. let's continue to build upon that. If we build upon that and we don't backtrack, which they don't have a good, track record for, I'll be cool. But if we go into season 4 and she opens up the season and she's sitting in some wooded area just talking to ghosts, I will probably say, okay, I don't care anymore.
Yeah,
It'll be Ocean again. It'll be Ocean too.
Oh no, don't Ocean.
And Mouse.
Already done.
Yeah,
Already
Ocean,
done.
Ocean,
and Mouse.
Ocean and Mouse, one on each shoulder, telling her good things and bad things.
No.
And a shadow in the background that's Kate.
Yeah.
Oh,
Not just any Kate, but young Kate, like Kate.
Yes,
Young
Kate,
Kate, yes.
Okay,
Yes,
yeah,
right.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, go ahead, Cangraphs.
Yeah, so I mean, I've always liked the Alice character. Even in season 2, where you seem to not like her, I've always enjoyed her character because she's a little break from the seriousness of the show. She's always a little goofy. She brings in weird little things going on. She's a little break in what's we're trying to be as dark as Arrow attitude all the time. So I like her addition to the show. This season, I had a couple of small nitpicks with the character, but that's not so much from the character or the actor. That is the writing for her. Like, I know I was on the after party and I talked about this. Her DUI in the Batmobile. What were they thinking? But that's a writing. That's a writing.
Yeah.
That's a writing thing. That's not nothing to do with the character or the acting. I actually thought Alice was one of the most logical characters this season. She constantly seemed to be the person to tell the rest of the team, like, there's this thing that you are missing because your emotions are getting in the way.
Yeah.
And she was she was pretty important to the story this season, even though if you rank the characters this season, it's probably like 5th of the ones you would think about,
Yeah.
And the one thing about, like, everyone keeps thinking, like, will Alice get redeemed? Will Alice get redeemed? I still go back to the episode where she left the girl in the sewer, and she basically told her, like, you can't depend on other people to help you. And she had her moment where she could have been on the path to redemption and chose a different path.
Yeah.
I think this is something we're going to have with Alice just almost always. She's going to kind of get close and then fall back. Yeah. I don't think we're ever going to get a redeemed Alice.
Okay. So moving on from Alice, let's talk a bit about, because we talked a little bit about Mary. Let's move on and talk about Montoya, because she was kind of a big deal this season, being introduced as a character and love interest for Poison Ivy, sort of the gateway into that character's backstory. And a lot of people were excited because obviously, remembering her from Gotham and coming over to Batwoman. I felt kind of bummed out because it became very obvious to me at a certain point that Montoya was directly connected to the Poison Ivy stuff. And then when that ended, her storyline ended pretty much. Because I had hoped that she was going to be a character that we would see throughout, because at the beginning I found her to be very, very boring, honestly. And then she got better as the season went on. And then she just disappeared from the show pretty much. Any thoughts on Montoya and how she was used on the show in general? Canadagraph's buddy, Lance.
One of the most uninteresting parts of the season for me. I watched Gotham, but I guess I just don't remember her character. So I didn't have that, oh boy, I can't wait to see more of her mentality about it. Her being connected to Poison Ivy, that kind of was her thing. Like, she didn't have a second anything. We didn't know her agenda immediately, but once we knew her agenda, she never had any other aspect, we know nothing else about the character except she liked the Poison Ivy.
Yeah.
And now she's gone, and I'm okay with it. Like,
and she was a sort of love triangle thing for like a split second on the show as well. Because
I forgot about that. Yeah, she had to be the reason so that we could have a little drama between Sophie and Ryan. I forgot about that.
I feel like she was one of the biggest missteps for the season in terms of having an interesting character added to the cast. Buddy, do you have anything to add about Montoya?
So I've kind of mentioned it a few times, but like I went back before this stream to watch my reviews to get caught up on the season. If I didn't do that, I would have forgot Renee Montoya was in the season. That's really bad because like I'm a big fan of Poison Ivy. That's like an integral part, but I'm like I genuinely forgot that character was in the entire season. I don't really have any like feelings, positive or negative. I just
Okay.
I know I've been talking in chat for a little bit. All I remember is that Montoya and Ivy are both on the island, right, with Sophia.
Yes.
So I can't believe if I have to get Poison Ivy back, I have to see Montoya and that island again, and I don't know if it's worth it. I don't know if it's worth it.
And her.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't
Oriana.
know. It's gonna go right back to Ocean. It's gonna go. It's all a loop. Okay, it goes back to the things I don't like, and I don't know.
Yeah.
So yeah, no real feelings on Montoya now.
Lance, any thoughts on this?
She was just annoying all around to me. I mean, the dramatic scene of her, didn't she like fondle Poison Ivy's desiccated body?
Yes, that's true. She did.
Like it was so awkward.
Oh no.
I was like, so you wanted to be led on team, like all the black men. Like, how far did you have to go to do all of this? Like, it's not that you want a crazy person back. Like, it's not that. Like, you can get another girl. Like, come on, you're not that unattractive. You can get another girl.
But not only that, but then think about like all the drama in their relationship that we found out about. Like, why were you still?
Why are you so like? Poison Ivy must put it on her. That's all I'm saying. Because she was head over heels for cuz, and all she wanted to do was save the world by killing people.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of a deal breaker for me. I would be I'm sorry. I think we have different things we want for the world in general.
Yeah.
So
You literally knew she killed 2 fishermen for fishing.
Yeah.
What they do. They fish, but you kill them and you walk up. Did you kill those fishermen? We can't do that. We can't do that.
Well, I mean, Candigraph's already said that he thought the Poison Ivy storyline was bad. So, there we go. All right, let's move on a little bit and talk about a character that when I was writing my notes, I'm like, what happened with this character? And that is Luke as Nightwing. What a great beginning, first couple episodes, and then this weird failsafe where the suit completely shuts down at heightened moments of emotion.
That is so dangerous.
Exactly. His father set that up so he's out fighting, and if he gets too scared, the suit cuts off.
He just drops.
Which made it so we didn't have Nightwing for like a good third of the season. And then we had the takeover of Wayne, which also made it difficult for him to use it. So Nightwing was introduced and then he was gone. And then he came back. Batwing. I'm saying Nightwing, Batwing.
I'm like, is this Gotham
Batwing.
Knights?
So I'm thinking about Titan. So we didn't get Batwing for like a good portion of the season. And I couldn't even remember his name because he didn't put the suit on but like 3 times. But yeah, so Nightwing. Let's talk about Titans. So anyway, but Luke with Batwing. So let's not talk about Titans. But yeah, Luke's story was so completely just, I don't know, it wasn't great. And I wanted it to be good because I love cameras and I think he's great in that role. And so for them to give him such an iconic character that people have wanted to see him play for a long time, to have a suit that looks amazing and then to just completely come up with a dumb reason why he can't put it on for the longest time. I would say Montoya annoyed me, but Luke, that storyline upset me because also once Mary was going down her route as Poison or Mary Ivy, Luke's connection with the rest of the characters became so thin because Mary was his like character that he talked to the most on the show. Any thoughts on Luke's storyline? Like, were you disappointed with it? Just go ahead and say what you got to say.
They dropped the ball completely. They could have done so much more. The setup coming out of season 2, I was really excited. I'm like, oh, we're gonna get Batwing and Batwoman, and you don't really have to worry about special effects because they're street level heroes.
Right.
Instead, we got the reason why Keenan left the Flash in the first place. He's tired of getting knocked on the floor and just laying there for an hour.
Oh, suit turns off. Oh, I can't
Like-
move.
Like the first time, I'm like, okay, you got PTSD from getting shot.
Yeah.
Cool. But the second time, it just keeps doing it. Like I'm like, how is that?
Okay.
Your dad is smart.
Let me just I just need to get this out there. I think a better way for the suit to function in that moment would be go on autopilot and sort of
Yes.
just take him,
There
fly
you
him
go.
away from whatever's going on, instead of just shutting down. It was the dumbest failsafe ever put into a suit.
Just
Buddy,
dropped.
any thoughts?
I don't remember like much of like his storyline, but I remember one part of it, and it was, Lucius built this suit for a black Batman, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't see his face.
I know. I said
You
the
can't
same
see
thing.
it at all. And every chance he gets, he takes it off. So why not just do that? Keep the
I
rolling eyes
said
if you
it
want.
is so funny you bring that up. Okay, so when he said that in the episode, we were sitting here watching because we have a group of people that come over. We all watch the shows together. And when he said, "This is what my father or something would have," this is what I would have imagined a black Batman to look like, and I was like, with his face covered.
Yep.
Yeah, I was
Sure.
like, okay, so Batwoman talks about how important visibility is to see a black Batwoman out there fighting crime. The same thing with Miles and Peter with Spider-Man. When they're out in the field, unless you know their secret identity, you don't know if they're white, black, Puerto Rican. You don't know who they are.
Well, Miles does have the exaggerated swagger of a black teen. So.
Okay, all right, I give you that. I love Miles has the best suits too, by the way.
Not his new
but-
one.
Oh, I haven't seen the new one, so I'm not gonna go look now. I'm not gonna go look. All right. Anyway, Kennedy Grass, any thoughts on Batwing or Luke this season?
Yeah, I mean, Luke was, for the first couple of seasons of the show, right there with Alice and Mary as my favorite characters. And this season, I do feel like he kind of was ignored. He wasn't fully ignored, like he was practically in every episode, but he was just a plot device most times to move the story in whichever direction. And as you said, the amount of times they found a reason for him not to be able to suit up or use his suit effectively so that the story can keep being dramatic was Crows getting knocked out in the parking lot level of yeah.
Technically, his suit had more defensive abilities than the Batwoman suit does. So I don't understand.
Well, I mean, this show has shown us one thing, and that is you can be great at everything and still fail all the time. Like I said, the Crows are supposed to be trained
The best of the best when it comes to like police force. Yeah.
Yeah, and they all have concussions, multiple concussions. And
Let me just say this. I think one of the biggest, and this is not just for season 3, one of the biggest problems with the show is incorporating a military style police force in Gotham that doesn't get the job done. That to me is one of the biggest problems because the Gotham Police Department, I can understand if you have like beat cops that are getting beat up or detectives that are getting beat up, but you can't tell me that people are trained at the level of like Kate Kane and Sophie. Yeah. Sophie is so much better than everyone else that did the same training that she did.
Yes, exactly. Like I used to frequently be like, I can almost kind of accept it from Jacob because he's older, maybe not as agile as he used to be. A little bit, I could be like, okay, that could happen to him on a whim.
Right.
It happened to him like 6 times though.
Yeah.
Once or twice, okay, I can fall for that. But Sophie, like you said, she's like mini Kate Kane there. It happened to her as often, you know? And now they're doing the same thing in a different way with Batwing. They're finding excuses why he can't be Batwing, you know? And I think a part of it comes down to budget. You know, this show is probably on the lower end of the budget scale, and they're just kind of like, we can't have this guy flying around town everywhere.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Well, they could have made it so maybe I would have rather than been like, well, your jetpack only has like an hour of power in it. You can't use it all the time. That would be an easy way for them to fix something like that. But he's supposed to be like Luke's intelligence in a suit like that is supposed to be a Iron Man, Batman character. That's what he's supposed to be, but more street level. That's what his character's supposed to be, but it's not happening. All right. So before we wrap this up and give our final thoughts on this, the one last thing in my notes is Wildmore. Any thoughts on that? I know some people were not happy about Sophie and Ryan getting together, after the whole Kate Kane situation. Because to me, I've already made it very clear in my reviews that I didn't really care if they did. I didn't really care if they didn't. But some people really wanted it to happen, and some people didn't want it to happen. So, thoughts on that?
I'm going to say a really edgy comment.
All right.
This may get Paigey excited as well in the chat.
Oh, okay. All right.
Wildmore is what I wanted West Allen to be for the past couple seasons. Oh, let me stop playing. No, but I'm so glad they got past the will they, won't they hate each other stage, because that's basically what it was since last season. Ryan's like, I hate your guts, and then this season she's like, I slightly hate your guts, but I kind of want you. But when they did the deed, I'm like, so y'all just said COVID out the window,
right?
Full on. I said, okay, I like that.
They had lots of testing. They did like days and days of testing before
they brought me back to the Arrow days with that one. I'm like, okay, here we go, action. But it was cool.
Okay, what about you, Canada Graphs? Thoughts on Wildmore?
I am more accepting of it than I was leading up to it. I still don't like the idea of it, and I think I've expressed that before, because it's going to become a point of the show that they're going to go to every episode, and it's going to eat up screen time that they just... Nobody wants to see this except for that 3% of the fans that are very vocal on Twitter.
Okay.
I have no problem with them being a couple. I have no problem with them as a couple, but I don't want to see that every episode for 2 to 6 minutes of screen time every episode, and you're going to get that.
I mean, what if they do 12 minutes of screen time for it?
Sometimes they will. We are going to get that every episode. We're going to get that every episode, and it's going to pull down the show as a whole, and all to please 3% of the fans that are just screaming on Twitter how wonderful it is. Every ship has the same problem, but I think it has bigger problem in this particular instance because it is the lead and basically one of the co-leads, and they're in a it's kind of a little compared to West Allen a little bit, except I think it's going to be more because it's just they are focusing on the relationship of them. Right. West Allen are just there. We see Iris and Barry have a date maybe every 4 months. They might be around each other, and we might get some West Allen discussions once in a while, but they aren't there every episode pushing, oh yeah, we have to go hang out in my bedroom for 20 minutes, You
mean it's not like Riverdale?
Oh,
I don't know. I stopped watching Riverdale, but yeah, it's going to become a focus of the show, and I'm concerned about that problem of it.
Buddy, your thoughts on that quickly on Wildmore?
Yeah, I got 3 things, right? So they basically just transferred the Kate and Sophie to Sophie and Ryan, which I just immediately just accepted, because I was like, of course we're doing that. I just accepted it. I just said, okay, we're getting it. But 2, every time I put it in the title, my views were up, so can't really complain that much. I'll continue to use it in my titles from now on. But 3, I think this is the best part. I think we all forgot something. This truly showed us Ryan's biggest weakness. Does anybody remember? It's belts. And I think the season 4 villain, if it's Blight, I think is going to use a belt, and it's gonna I'm telling you, it's set up. It's set up. I think it's clear.
This is a funny super chat here. It's not really a question, but Citizen Tim Scott with a $5 super chat. Any Team Eric member says the Crows must have great health care. I mean,
I I
have
guess.
to.
I mean,
Either that or they are in crippling debt. One or the other.
Yeah.
They're not only crippled, but they're in crippling debt. So there we go. Thank you for that super chat. All right, so this is the 10-minute warning. We're going to do like 10 minutes or less here. But I want to get everybody's final thoughts on issues with season 3, what you would like to see in season 4. I'm going to go ahead and throw this over to Buddy. Why don't you season 3, any issues we didn't cover that you want to talk about, and what would you like to see in season 4?
Honestly, like with all my complaints out of the way, like I really enjoyed the more focused center of the Bat team. With shows like The Flash or Superman and Lois or Old Days of Arrow, whatever, right? I never really liked the late seasons team dynamic. It never really works for me. But I really like where the team's at now. I want to see more of that. I think them being dynamic and it's just that's the best part for me. I love that. With the villains, I really like the 2.0 story across the season. I don't know how we would adapt it another way in the next season, but I would love Batwoman to do more adaptations of comic book characters because that kept me interested every single week. We got like a comic book character adapted. I love that. So I want to see more. I don't want to see the island again. And then I think I'm good. I think I'm ready for season 4. I think that'll be good for me.
So here we go. I actually introverted you record. I would like to see Sophie have a storyline other than a love interest next season. I agree with that. Don't disagree with that.
Yeah, that was
And
one of the things I was just going to bring up.
A $2 storyline. Wildmore will become the Olicity of Batwoman.
It already is.
Wow. So Canada Graphs, your thoughts, season 3 and season 4.
Yeah, I mean, season 3, Introverted just hit on one of them, and that is like Sophie is a lame duck character right now. She's doing nothing. Her job on this show is to be there for Ryan when they need her to like hit the Wildmore like fan base.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that because she wasn't even in my notes for like a topic of discussion because her
I noticed when you got to Wildmore and then you're like, we're going to start wrapping it up. In my head, I was like, we never talked about Sophie as an individual character, and there's a reason for that. Yeah, because she wasn't.
Right.
No.
What about you, Lance? Season 3, season 4.
Season 3, like I said, I enjoyed it. Yes, it had its issues, but like every show, that comes with the territory. Season 4, I would say I would like to see how she meets them, but I'd like to see how she meets the other Arrowverse characters. But since we are getting that in a comic book that will be canon, it's nothing we can really do about that. But I will say I want to see her dive more into what it really means to be Batwoman, to take up this mantle. I know it means a lot to her, but it's several more characters in the Batman lore and that whole corner of the DC universe that can be introduced if allowed, and I think it would be cool to see. Also, Buddy, they are doing more 2.0s. In the comic, they're doing Clayface 2.0.
Oh, really?
Okay.
Yeah,
I didn't know that. That's great.
Also, I didn't put this in the information for this video, but apparently Lena Luthor is going to be in the Batwoman comic as well.
Was that what Ben's title was about? Oh,
yeah, and apparently Kate told Kara that Ryan is the new Batwoman, and Kara told Lena because Lena needs her help.
So it is tying in the Kate Kane story that we left at the end of season 2. Then.
Yes.
Yeah.
Although I would love to see how Kara reacted to Kate rocking up with a whole
new body and face. Yeah, basically. Yeah. All right, so entry new record this. We'll answer this one, and then we're gonna quickly go through we had like 2 different things in super chat that we'll answer. Did you guys like how they connected Marcus and Alice's origin stories? We didn't really talk about this, but I thought it was good. I didn't have an issue with it because I went back and watched the original scene, and I'm like, okay. I mean, I buy it. It's very comic booky, but it worked. I don't have an issue with it. Any issues with this at all? I didn't really have a problem with it.
Nope.
It's just the way Marcus narrated it all, maniacally and evil.
And it gave us a chance to actually kind of sort of barely see the Joker for a second.
That's true. And actually, some people were saying that Joker is the most accurate Joker we've had since like the 80s. So
he looks like the Man Who Laughs, which the Joker is based off of.
Yeah. All right, so this is where I put everybody on the spot. We're going to do a 1 to 10 scoring of the season before we answer these super chats very quickly. If you had to score season 3 as a whole on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the best, what would you score season 3 of Batwoman? And the chat can also chime in as well.
For me, about a 7.5.
Okay. That's a little lower than I thought you'd actually give it, but it's
I mean, from an entertainment standpoint, I give it like a 9. But
okay.
there are writing flaws with it that
Okay,
I can't
fair enough.
ignore. You know,
Gotcha. All right. Buddy Lance, are the numbers adding up in your head now? Are you
I'd say 7.5. You know, watching you and Canada Grass and Paigey over the years, y'all have me really like diving deeper in what these shows actually do. And yes, entertainment, like Canada Grass said, entertainment wise, it would be like a 9. If I wanted to go crazy, I'd say 10 out of 10. But it did have its flaws.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Buddy, your thoughts?
I feel like I can't give it more than a 7 because of those first 5 episodes truly leading me down
Yeah.
the rabbit hole of corporate Arrow early seasons, and I'm like, why do we have to do that? So that's a big chunk of the season too.
It was.
Like there's only
That's
13
true.
episodes. That's 5 episodes. But
Yeah.
the last part of that season was really good. So I have to say a 7, but I mean it really does get better every episode.
Yeah. So I'm in there with you guys. I'm around a 7.5 for the season. And the reason why is I almost tapped out. There were 2 episodes that I almost tapped out on. One of them was the art episode where she went to the art gala thing episode. And the episode with the Professor Pig storyline in the house. Those 2 for me were the episodes where I was almost like, is this going to be a Legends of Tomorrow moment for me? And it wasn't. And I'm glad I stuck around because I actually enjoyed the back half of the season. So there's that. All right. So quickly, Gary Gummon with a 199 super chat said, is the Flash getting delayed? Is Flash season 9 getting delayed? Gary cannot answer that because we know very little about what's going to happen with season 9. I would assume no.
I've been told
does
that
get delayed, it's my fault.
I've been told that season 9 isn't going to air until 2025.
Oh wow! Well, then that's Then I would say
that's right on schedule. That's right on schedule for it, so it's not delayed.
Right. Paigey with an edgy members only super chat says, "Who is Will Smith and Chris Rock in this scenario?" I guess he's talking about the 4 of us. I
think there was a debate going on about something at the time. I can't remember the context of it now. That was a while ago.
All right. Well, either way, I think that's kind of edgy and would have got us demonetized probably. So there we go.
One last thing that we didn't really touch on. What do you guys think are our chances of a season 4?
Oh, that's a good question.
I mean, I've went over this in my head. Here's my thought process on this. Up until a week ago, I still thought we were in the high 90s. I'm like 95% chance it's getting renewed. There's just some red tape they haven't worked out yet.
Right.
Then they did that signing on Gotham Knights of Misha Collins, which I know I talked with Eric in the after party about this. He pulls numbers that's going to give Gotham Knights credibility right out of the gate. If this comes down to they only have so many slots for shows, and they're like, we kind of only want to keep one Gotham show, I think Gotham Knights now is the leader just because of Misha Collins. And Batwoman for me moves from like a 95% down to like an 80% or 75% now. I kind of think it's gone from an almost sure thing to a bubble show for me. Only because of some of the signings. Kat McNamara's on that Walker spinoff. We have Misha now on the Gotham Knights. They're trying to make these work right out of the gate.
Yeah.
They might be pushing some shows out.
I'll be honest. I after I heard about the casting for Gotham Knights, I was a bit worried because I know how popular that he is as an actor and as the character from Supernatural. So I knew that was a big deal. So I am a bit worried. But I think we should. How long do we have? What's the absolute latest they could renew Batwoman? Like,
in theory, this summer. I know I've said frequently the upfronts is probably the end date, but they could always just move Batwoman to a mid-season show, premiering in January, and they don't have to let them know until June, July that they're starting in September for filming. You know, it would be.
And I was going to say the other thing is Batwoman is a very diverse and inclusive cast, like the way they have that show set up. But Gotham Knights also is too, because of the casting information we've gotten from that show as well. So it's almost an apples to apples show for them. Like they could choose to go, they could go either direction, and they're not losing much in terms of their demographic and their viewer base. Other than there would be a lot of people mad to lose Ryan Wilder as Batwoman, honestly. So especially
I
DC
think
is now incorporating that character in the comics. So
I think the social media impact from that 3% we talked about earlier will be pretty vocal if they get axed.
Yeah, I think so.
And they will take it out on that network in other ways.
Yeah. So Lance, buddy, any thoughts on this before we wrap things up? Renewal worries?
I mean, with all of this kind of thinking, like Ryan Wilder, like they are introducing into the comics. They're trying to do things, you know, with the Flash Armageddon crossover, maybe something with Superman and Lois down the line. I don't know if they'd want to trash this character and this Gotham right here. Maybe like we get a season 4, but it may be the final season. I could see it. I don't want that, but I could totally see that because I mean, if Gotham Knights is going to pull those numbers, and it's like they are kind of doing the same thing when it comes to what the CW wants them to do, but one's probably going to get higher ratings than the other, and you know, whatever. It makes me sad, but I could see a season 4 being it.
I could see Misha coming in and giving that show easily 800, 900,000 views just on him alone.
Yeah. I think I said that in the after party. I'm like, low end 400,000 viewers are going to come in just to see what Misha Collins does. High end, 1 million. You know,
and they're giving him a character that can go long term. That Harvey Dent can stay on the show through the duration of the show. Like he could be on there for the whole. However they want to do 8 seasons, he could be there for 8 seasons. So there you go. Lance, any final thoughts or words about this before we wrap up?
Yeah, when I heard about Misha being cast, I was like initially worried. But I mean, the way I'm thinking about it is like Paige said before, the CW does like to do the dumb thing in pairing shows, and they would try to package them like come to the CW for Gotham Wednesdays or
they could do
something corny like that, or
Yeah.
they might do the Naomi, Superman, and Lois and Stargirl thing and make Gotham Knights a summertime show or mid-season show because it isn't connected. They can have DC content year round.
You know what I just thought about? The branding is right there in the name. They could be like, join us Monday for our Gotham night with Batwoman and Gotham Knight.
I never thought about that.
It's right there. Oh, they should totally use that.
Yeah, and if they do, we know they're watching our live stream. That's all I gotta say.
That's amazing.
All right, so what I wanted to say, thank you to everybody for joining me today. This is kind of like we talked about doing this a couple weeks ago, but we finally got to doing it. Thank you so much, Canada Graphs, Lance, and Buddy for being here and talking about Batwoman. I had a lot of fun discussing the ups and downs of the seasons. If you're watching this on playback, in the comment section, if you would like for us, because I talked about this before we went live, if you would like something like this for all of the shows when their seasons ends, roughly the first week when they end, we're going to try and do that with like Superman and Lois and the Flash and those shows. If you would like for us to sit down and do this for each show instead of me doing a pre-recorded season overview, which is what I was doing before, let me know in the comments. I would love to get all of us back together to chat about the other shows when they wrap up. I had a lot of fun with everybody. Thank you so much for being here, and thanks everybody in the chat for joining us on a odd time of day. It was in the middle of the afternoon. I thought it was a great time to get together and chat. And you guys showed up. The viewership was good. I appreciate you guys coming out and being very vocal in the chat about how much you love or hate the show. It's fine there. Anyway, thank you guys so much. Thank you, Lance, Buddy, Canada Graphs, and